Today we're talking about NE, or Extraverted Intuition. We will discuss this function with respect to every position in the cognitive stack that it can fulfill, and we will link this to the personality types that makes use of Extraverted Intuition on that specific spot in the stack. So tune in for that. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's dive in. First of all, we've got Extraverted Intuition as a hero function or a dominant function. This is the case for ENTPs and ENFPs, for whom this is basically the most important aspect of their personality. It's basically the part of themselves that kind of dominates everything that they do. They use it so much that sometimes they can't even tell that they're using it, simply because it is who they are. And how this manifests is in a tendency to always see a lot of different possibilities. It makes them very creative and interested in exploring many things, but especially when it comes to the mental experience of something. The difference between NE dominant people and SE dominant people is that ENTPs and ENFPs are much more likely to be interested in the mental experience that something new brings them. On the other hand, people who have SE as a dominant function are more likely to be interested in something new that gives them a more realistic, tangible experience. So ENTPs and ENFPs will always be fascinated by the connections that they can explore and the different perspectives and things that they can link to each other in such a way that they can move forward into the future. And this is something that is kind of at the core of everything that they do, something that guides their decision-making process as well. Next, we've got Extraverted Intuition as a parent function or an auxiliary function. This is the case for INTPs and INFPs, who kind of use this function probably in the healthiest way, because they use it a lot and they're quite experienced in navigating the world while taking advantage of this function, but they don't use it as much as any hero types. So what this means is that INTPs and INFPs will kind of like exploring a lot of ideas and possibilities as well, but they will do it a bit after they have taken their time to process something internally. And they are not so likely to always go with everything that takes them and everything that stimulates them from the world around them, but they guide the selection of possibilities through either their rational, logical, innate system for INTP, or they guide it as a result of what their values tell them to do, as a result of using introverted feeling for INFP. So they will go and explore what these possibilities can mean, and they really enjoy doing it, but they will do it in a slightly more tempered way. Then we've got Extraverted Intuition as a child function, so a tertiary function. This is the case for ESFJs and ESTJs. What this means is that ESTJs and ESFJs will be fascinated with what this spontaneity can mean, and they can be really respectful of people who can be very spontaneous, go with the flow, let's explore all of the possibilities. And as they grow older, ESTJs and ESFJs will be quite curious to see how it's like to spend time with other NP personality types, because their energy, their innocence, at least perceived innocence, their flexibility and capacity to adapt is something that is fascinating to ESFJs and ESTJs. And they will start trying to be more spontaneous, they will start trying to be more adaptable and more into exploring various different perspectives to understand the point, but sometimes they will have various shortcomings to this. And especially when under stress or when they're overwhelmed, it will be very difficult for them to actually be so spontaneous, and they will get back to introverted sensing because that comes much more naturally to them. Then we have Extraverted Intuition as an inferior function, so the case of ISFJs and ISTJs. Similarly to ESFJs and ESTJs, ISFJs and ISTJs will really try to understand how it's like to be spontaneous, how it's like to go with the flow, how it's like to explore all of these different possibilities and perspectives. But it will usually be very difficult for them, and they can get stuck in the grip of this function, which means that they will kind of get away from their normal self, the self that most people are used to, the stable, consistent, organized planner who likes tradition and who likes rules. And they will go into this very scattered mode where they will try to explore a lot of different things, but they will not be able to focus their energy on anything properly. And this will cause a lot of frustration to them. However, if they actually are able to gain some sort of a benefit from using this extroverted intuition, they will feel very, very proud of themselves. Because as we've talked in the previous videos, having some sort of an accomplishment as a result of using our inferior function usually brings a lot of pride, happiness, and fulfillment, because it's so rare. Next, we have extroverted intuition as a Nemesis function. So a fifth function. We're now going into the shadow. Here we've got INFJs and INTJs. What will happen here is that if their introverted intuition will be challenged, and it won't help them in every way that they want it to help them, they will start connecting to their extroverted intuition, and they will be able to use it to see the different possibilities, to see the different perspectives, to explore, to brainstorm, to be curious. But they will have a much more limited usage of it as compared to ENTPs and ENFPs. It won't come so naturally to them. And it's also likely that INTJs and INFJs might feel like people who use a lot of extroverted intuition are trying to oppose them. And they can get quite frustrated and annoyed at this, even if it's not true. Also, INFJs and INTJs can get triggered by ENTPs and ENFPs who are not following through with their commitments and plans, because it triggers this Nemesis function who is kind of opposing what their dominant or hero function is trying to tell them to do. So an INTJ and an INFJ will value the capacity to finish things and bring things to a closure, and the very scattered, curious perspective of extroverted intuition can cause them frustration. Now we're going deeper and deeper into the shadow, and here we've got extroverted intuition as a critical parent. This is the case of ENFJs and ENTJs, who will be kind of critical of people whom they perceive to be phony or fake, and they will have zero tolerance for that. Also, this critical parent extroverted intuition will make them think sometimes that they have superpowers and that they have the capacity to have an incredible insight, an incredible intuition, which can cause a slight overconfidence in their ability to use intuition, because it makes them feel like their insight is so deep and so meaningful, and that they can see connections that nobody else can see, which maybe sometimes is true, but in other situations it can lead to them having a not so nice behavior, and they can get quite annoying for the people around them. Extroverted intuition as a trickster or blind spot function, so the trickiest function, most difficult to deal with. This is the case of ISFPs and ISTPs, who will find it very, very annoying and difficult to understand why other people care so much about so many different possibilities. And their parent extroverted sensing will try to make them focus on the present, on what is real, what is concrete, what is tangible. And then when they see other people using extroverted intuition and exploring everything, they'll be like, why? Why do you need to do this? Why do you need to overanalyze things so much? Just decide on something, do it now. Stop thinking so much, stop planning so much, stop analyzing everything to such an extent. However, they will also sometimes fall into the trap of using this function, but they will do it in a rather unhealthy way, because they will be unaware in most situations that they're doing it. And they'll try to overcompensate and also come up with a lot of different possibilities and read way too much into things and think that they have the capacity to understand things on a very, very deep level. But this will not always be the case, and they might be mistaken when they make various assumptions. And lastly, we've got extroverted intuition as a demon function. This is the case of ESTPs and ESFPs, for whom this function will be very, very hard to relate to. When they see it in other people, they don't understand. They will also be frustrated by why do others need to explore all of these possibilities so much? Why do they always need to try out so many different mental experiences? And when they actually try to use it, they will do it in a very narcissistic way, and they will try to succeed in a very forceful manner in situations where they previously failed. due to the fact that they tried so many things, or that they opened themselves out to so many different possibilities and perspectives. And this can get to be quite frustrating for the people around them, because it can lead to self-destruction in a way or another. That being said, you can also notice, as we've discussed in the previous videos, that it's possible that SE and NE can actually connect in a very, very deep way, from kind of showing light from one side or the other, and then having the capacity to balance the psyche out. It could be the case that the connection and integration of these two functions is what maintains the psyche to be stable for NE heroes and SE heroes, or NE demons. Because in a way or another, they are the ones that are kind of protecting the other functions from the external world, and kind of shielding what is inside of the psyche, allowing it to spin and allowing it to work, to happen. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Share your thoughts below, and see you next week with a video about introverted sensing.